Bomb Girls is set during the early 1940s, centers around a munitions factory and the women and also the men who work there and their lives and how they're at once sort of fighting for the freedom overseas, but in the process discovering their own freedom as well.
The story of Bomb Girls is a really important story to tell because it shines a light on a part of history, and especially Canadian history, that before I started working on this project I didn't know that much about, and it is so interesting.
The story of Bomb Girls has, to my knowledge, really never been told in quite this way. We don't generally talk about what we did in the war in Canada very much, and we don't seem to remember that we had an enormous role to play in the fighting against the Axis powers, that we were the source of food and munitions, guns, planes, because everything in Europe had been bombed out.
One of the very fascinating things about Bomb Girls is that we tell the stories of a very diverse group of women coming together at the bomb factory. It's a moment where there is a kind of transition for women that is unprecedented. To suddenly be, first of all, making money for the first time, having the freedom that goes with that, and having a kind of responsibility to be part of the war effort that's going to determine the well-being and outcome of their sons, their husbands on the battlefront was just unprecedented.
It's about being human in a time of which required enormous courage and strength and sacrifice around the world.
For me, these women are soldiers. These are women who were fighting the best way that they were able to, and that there were casualties, there were injuries, there were costs involved, and that women were still willing to pay those prices.
It took incredible bravery to work in a bomb factory because there were accidents. Women lost hands, arms, limbs, fingers. Sometimes several people would be killed. You know, it's explosives. You're working with explosives. That's dangerous.
I don't know how these women did it. I don't know how they literally went from baking apple pies to making bombs. I don't know how they psychologically, emotionally were able to make that transition so quickly.
For this brief time in history, people's attentions were drawn to the capability of women and the skills that women just had, and the determination that they had, and the fierceness and the passion and the sort of three-dimensional traits of women. And that, for me, is a phenomenal thing to be able to be a part of.
What sets Bomb Girls apart from other projects that we've produced is the fact that it's a combination of historical drama tied into social issues that are still relevant today. And that's the great thing about this show, because you're looking at historical events from the point of view of real people.
Anyone who watches it will look and say, oh, wow, that relates to something going on with me right now. Being in love, to getting married, wanting approval from your families, and being in love with someone and they don't love you back. Storylines that I think speak to any generation.
It's a way to actively tell a true war story. There's a weightiness to everything that you really feel that something is happening away from home, and the remnants of it are resonating throughout Canada.
The music helped define that era, and it was so distinct and so incredibly amazing that we have to have that music in this series. It's everywhere. And don't forget, people didn't have TV back then. Everyone listened to radio. So if they weren't listening to, you know, some comedy show or the news, they were listening to music.
What really surprised me was frankly, how much fun it was to be alive in the 40s on the home front. Our grandparents were in their 20s. Our grandparents finally had money. You know, they survived the Depression. They had a job. They had money. People from across going out into dances and parties, experimenting all kinds. When you talk to people of the time, and when you read the testimonies of the people, so many, the thing you hear over and over was, honestly, it was the best of my life.
Head in the game, Miss Witham.
Gladys comes to work in the bomb factory initially as a secretary, and once she's seen what the other women get to do, there's no going back. Filing paperwork just isn't going to cut it.
Gladys Witham comes from a very privileged background, and she, like many women during the war, was sort of seeing the war as a chance to jump tracks.
She actually wants to shed her sort of the privileged bubble that she's come from, to work with the girls, to work with the working class girls, which was unheard of back then.
She's never seen women in that role before. It's as though a kid who's never been allowed a chocolate bar and their whole life was let out in a candy store. It's this absolute marvel, and it opens up this entirely new world of possibilities to her.
Betty is very skeptical when she arrives. She's seen rich girls come in and out. It's like anyone who comes into your job and they're just sort of peering in.
You think you're all brave now because you walked inside a factory? But what have you ever done your whole life? One thing that ever scared you?
You know, she thinks that Gladys won't stay, and then she sees Kate's ease with Gladys and want her to be involved, so gives her a chance and trains her, and then sees that Gladys isn't lazy, she's smart.
So for her, working in the bomb factory is hard work, but it represents a chance to do something, finally something that matters.
Laugh or cry, you're not working the floor, you're in the office. That was the deal.
I want to do more. When I think about what thousands of soldiers do on our behalf...
Enough with the damn soldiers, okay?
Gladys, because she's been raised differently, is used to saying, why isn't this different? Or this isn't fair, or this isn't right. Gladys was able to open a door to something which Lorna wouldn't have thought of.
She's a free spirit in that kind of sense. A confined free spirit because everyone is trying to pigeonhole her into what she appears to be. The idea of the whole marriage picture, the white picket fence, so to speak, the kids and the fiancé and the long-term commitment definitely scares her. That's rare as an actress, to get to play a character where you don't just get to be the nice girl. You get to be the nice girl who has the dark sides, who lets people down, who disappoints, who finds things again, who knows how to laugh but knows real pain as well. It's a tremendous, tremendous opportunity.
Hustle in, girls! Green shift can't finish until you take their place. Lorna's shift matron, so she's the one who runs the floor and makes sure that everything goes smoothly. She has a personal connection with every bomb bullet that goes over there, because if there's a dud, it could be her boys who pay the price.
She's already been through a war, and she's been through a depression, and she married young. She married a soldier in the First World War. It's her job, in a way, to make sure that girls don't make the same mistake that she did.
You can't wear your street shoes in the office. You got nails in the soles, you get sparks.
Ugh, these are some gruesome twosomes.
Now your ring.
Just my engagement ring.
I don't care if it's the Hope Diamond, those are the rules.
In a way, the other girls experience her as a bit of a villain, you know, an antagonist. And within that, there's this germ of a beautiful heart that's beginning to blossom.
Vera is a soldier.
Mother, please.
No, Vera risked her life every day to help win this war. Do not turn your back on her. If you want to see our boys with bullets in their guns and bombs in their planes, you will show her the same respect. Now, go in there, you book the operating room, and you do the surgeries, no matter how expensive or lengthy. You do your best for that girl.
She protects the girls, she looks out for the girls, but I don't know that they are aware of what she does or how she goes to battle for them. I don't think they know. But because she's so loyal, because she's so strong, she thinks she shouldn't have needs. She tries not to. She's squished them, tamped them down for years.
She now, in a very different way, is now faced with all these young women who are living life to the fullest, crossing moral boundaries, and she's the matron, and she has to somehow find a way of containing them. She's tired of being shut down and repressed, and the women are showing her another way of being. Meg Tilly, my gosh. I first met her in the audition room, and I swear within 5 seconds, we were just bouncing off of each other, and there was the character. You know, Lorna. That was Lorna. She is Lorna.
You get characters sometimes that just burrow into your heart and your gut, and you always try to do your best, but Lorna's one of those characters where I just want to do right by her.
Kate Andrews is on the run. She is fleeing a very frightening situation in her family life, and she's essentially changing her life. So the stakes are really big for her.
It's interesting because she has a very weak demeanor physically, and you think that she, could easily break, and she does at points, but she's also really brave and courageous to leave everything that she knows, coming from essentially prolonged state of childhood almost, in the sense that she's so sheltered and so unaware of how other people live.
So do soldiers dance with all the girls?
Yeah, you dance with a dozen jive bombers, you'll go home with as many requests for marriage.
Oh, I hardly think.
Well, you should.
She is, wide-eyed. She's never seen anything like this. She's had an extremely sheltered life. She's never even seen a movie before, probably. So this is the sort of thing where she's flourishing, and she's doing it largely through her voice, and she does this well through a friendship with Betty McRae.
Betty can see by Kate's scars and the stories that she hears that people in Kate's life weren't looking out for her either. So Betty no one asks her to, but Betty just takes on the role of being Kate's protector.
Don't pour so close. Keep a hand on the crate till they're full.
Charlotte Hegley, as a person, fit Kate so much. The essence and her raw talent was so perfect for the role. And her voice. It's bewitching, it's haunting, bewitching. There's something about her, too, that just says 40s. There's some people now that, even though they're young and they're 22, 23, they have a kind of old soul, and they feel a little bit like they actually don't belong in this era. She actually feels like she belongs in the 40s, and it just comes across so well on the screen and was so well in the series.
You just gotta pull up on the knob. Nice cake.
Thank you. I'm a light sleeper. I'm Kate. Kate Andrews, please.
Unless it's lunch or tea break, you do not leave your station until the next shift arrives.
I enjoy Betty's swagger. I love her walk, and I just love her sense of purpose and her directness.
Betty's very headstrong. She isn't about looking pretty or looking good or pleasing anybody, She's about doing the job and doing it well and being honest to herself and with other people.
The girls look to her as a leader, although she's an outsider as well.
Do you want to try a twirl?
Betty is exploring her sexual identity, and we see that as the show continues. And in terms of Kate, she just has this way about her that just melts Betty. Not many people melt Betty. Betty is not a melty person.
She saw an ad, girls, we need you in the big cities fighting Hitler. And she's somebody who's very comfortable in a factory setting. She grew up on a farm. She grew up around men. She's a tough worker. She knows how to get the job done. The challenges for her is how she actually deals with other women.
Ladies, you do fine embroidery, you can assemble a time fuse. If you sew buttons, you can thread a detonator. If you can pour tea, you can pour Amytal. It's no big whoop.
She just wants to encourage these housewives and these women who came out to just, come on, get it together.
If this war ends, she might not get to work in a factory like this, and this is, where she really belongs. She doesn't want to be a housewife.
We're fighting Jerry's here, ladies. And trust me, Fritz ain't resting.
She's not well read.
Get busy.
She's not a very romantic person, but she overcompensates, I think, in her work ethic and her focus and her drive to make something of herself. Lorna refers to her all the time as being the best girl that they got.
Being an Italian during the Second World War, when most of the men were away, he had the knowledge and the know-how to deal with bombs, which is how he got his position here at Victory Munitions.
Marco is the factory's materials controller. He's a very healthy, good-looking, accomplished young man, but because he's an Italian, it was very difficult for Italians to fight in the Canadian military. Marco's story has to do with the challenge of how you are a man on the home front. When every man is in a uniform and you're not, who are you? What kind of a guy are you?
He takes everything really lightly with a grain of salt, just like it just flows with it, And this is part of Marco's charisma. It's part of his charm, is that nothing really gets to him, except sometimes.
Might as well throw out a welcome mat for Mussolini.
I left Italy when I was 2 years old.
Fox in the hen house. Isn't that what you said? Well, I'm smoking you out. I say 2 words about this, you're gone.
Bastards already got my father in some internment camp. No good reason except he's Italian. This job feeds my family. Say one word, and I'll make sure you regret it.
Who's to say he's not a spy? It was the feeling of the era, Many people were sent to internment camps unfairly, and people like Lorna were part of the reason they were sent there.
What I love about Antonio is the way that he's able to exude a sort of sex appeal, but there's still a gravitas. This is a guy who has a lot of pain in him, and he's trying to find a way to be a man. This character does respect these women for being out here and doing this. So he's a very interesting, complex character, and I think Antonio's doing an amazing job pulling it off.
If you're working with people of this caliber, you're doing a scene and you forget you're doing a scene. You really just know you're in it, and they're in it, and you believe it, and people at home believe it, and it's true. It's like it's a real pleasure to lose yourself in this work.
Why should people watch Bomb Girls? Well, because it's fun. It's a vital, vibrant, exciting world that we plunge you in, but also because it's a lens into a part of our history that I think we don't really appreciate.
I love all the private moments that you get to see these characters' thoughts where other people aren't looking at them. It's just my favorite, and that's in the beautiful writing of this show, where Kate has fallen asleep or you see Betty's, and then you get to actually see the character's heart because nobody's looking at them. Is just, that's my favorite.
All of a sudden I realized, because I've been having so much fun shooting this, the people are going to see this. And I felt a little taken aback and a little bit scared, like, people are going to see this? Because it just feels like playtime. It feels like we're making something real special. It will prove that you can write a story, act a story in your country, about your country, and people will want to see it. If it's well done and well acted, and the props are so detailed, the wardrobe is beautiful, and the sets are amazing.
For me, it's fantastic because I walk into one of our sets, for example, the rooming house set, and I feel like I'm walking back into 1941 with the clotheslines across the hallways and the special little wooden clothes pegs. It's fantastic. It's like walking through a door and going back in time. I love it.
Canadian audiences are quite interested in the contribution that Canada made in the war. Women in many other countries as well had their lives transformed as a result of the war and will be able to relate well to the kind of experiences that the women we're portraying have had and will see in this show.
Canadian television needs this kind of a television series. It's set in Toronto. Nobody even knows we had munition factories here. And these women were responsible for helping the war effort, so we thought that this was incredible and an important story to tell here for this country. And it's dramatic and sexy and exciting too.
Don't save your kisses, just pass them around. You'll find my reason is logically sound. Who's gonna know that you pass them around 100 years from today? 100 years from today. So laugh and sing, make love the thing, be happy while